I've decided that I'm selling both my businesses and moving to Thailand for a minimum of 90 days, maximum of 6 months. And then when I get home, so long as everything holds up through the arm, I'm going to come back and have one last fight in front of my friends and fans and then retire.
No. Hey, welcome to Cowboy Talks. I am CT, the Urban Cowboy, and today we are here with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Chase, the Weapon Walden, international Muay Thai champion, kicky punchy extraordinaire, real life ninja, referees, sanctions, rights, rules. I think you can cook too, right?
I can cook a little bit.
Chase Walden, man, welcome to the show, bro.
Thank you for having me on, man. I've been excited about doing it ever since you started up. I knew I was going to have to be a guest at some point in time, so here we are.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I've known you for quite a while and watched your journey. So you're from Hampton Roads?
So I was born in Belchase, Louisiana, actually. A lot of people don't know that about me.
Right on.
But I was a military kid being raised that way, and I jumped all around the country, around the world, actually. But we lived here in Virginia Beach, I think 3 separate times. So if there's any place that I had like constitute as home, this was the closest thing to it. So yes, I'm from the Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads area, but originally I was born down in Louisiana.
Right on. In Belchase, was that because of the military, or is that where Dad's from?
That was military. So there's a base in Baton Rouge, I believe, and then Belchase is a little town right outside of that. So
okay, got it. All the places you've been, where was your favorite place that you guys lived? Like whether that be overseas or
that we lived?
States? Yeah.
Oh, sure. That was Italy, hands down, man.
Italy. What was it about Italy?
So we lived in Naples, Italy from 1998 to 2001.
Oh, wow. American Pie days.
Yeah. And that was just a different time to be alive. The phones and everything else and the light.
What about the phones? You had to have the long cords.
Right? So the year that we moved there, that was the last year that the military families were allowed to live on the economy. So
what is an economy?
On the economy, like out in the public, like in the Italian neighborhoods and shit.
Okay, so this was the last time that they could live out in town.
Yes, exactly. So from 1999 and on, everybody had to live on base in Grindstone because they put in all this money into this new military, not facility, but base, housing units and all that shit. So
was that because the military guys were acting up in town?
No. It's because they spent an ass load of money on that base. No doubt. Is what it is. So I was probably 9 to 12 years old, almost 13.
Oh, very impactful years.
Exactly. So there was like 3 bases pretty much.
Is that where you started like liking girls?
A little bit before that, but that's where I could be around girls without supervision.
Yeah. Oh, yes, sir. Italian girls too at that. Huh?
Yeah. They were a little more mature than we were, which is pretty cool.
Right on.
But the whole supervision thing was the most pivotal part of it, is because we were
unsupervised. How did you get less? How do you mean by that? Just school, or
there was like 3 bases that existed in that area, and they were trying to condense it down into this one brand new base. You see what I'm saying? So all of the jobs were kind of far away. My school was 45 minutes away, bus ride every day.
Dang.
Right? Yeah. Dad's base where he worked.
What did you do on those bus rides to kill time?
You don't want to know.
We didn't have cell phones then,
all kinds of fun stuff. We'll get back to that one. But because everything was so far away, in the summertime, your parents are working. A lot of our parents had 2 jobs or had things to go do. We're at the house with no cell phones, no internet, or with some internet, but no access to everything. So we had to go out and do shit. We got to run the streets.
Cameras.
Exactly. We got to run the streets and be as nefarious as we wanted to be and never get caught for it because there was no evidence of it.
It is a little bit eerie. You don't see kids really running around anymore.
Well, if I saw kids nowadays going out doing what we were doing, even just hanging out for the day, being innocent kids, going to chill at your buddy's house, we were walking miles away to our buddy's house.
Biking or skateboarding or
on European roads with no way to contact anybody if we got hurt or got in trouble. And that was just life. So that was, looking back on it, I mean, the amount of freedom that we had to do whatever we wanted to do, good or bad, it was there for the taking.
Absolutely.
We could do whatever we wanted to do.
Man.
And what do you think, preteens and teens do? Because again, it's a military community, so all the American kids hang out. So we're hanging out with a bunch of older teenagers at 12 and 13 years old with zero
smoking
adults.
cigarettes and drinking booze.
We lived in Italy, bro. All you had to do was go into that store and tell them the bottle you were buying was for your parents. And they're like, all right, cool.
Oh, my gosh. I didn't even think of that. It is.
Yeah.
Man, that's where they say if you can see over the bar, you can get a drink.
Yeah. So we had a lot of fun out there, man.
That's
a whole
awesome,
lot of fun.
Man. So that's why it was your favorite, just because you were like, you had freedom for maybe the first time?
Yeah, for sure. Because that was the first time I didn't live in an area where we weren't allowed to go out and do anything, because growing up we were very poor. My dad was an E2.
I'm about to say low rank in the military. Yes, sir. Yeah. Struggleville, man.
So we were, looking back on it, I was always curious why we weren't allowed to go hang out and play in the neighborhood and do whatever. We were stuck inside the house because we lived in the fucking ghetto.
Right.
Our parents didn't want us going out anywhere. Then if we didn't live somewhere like that, we lived on a military base where everyone's watching at all given times. And then we go to another country where we have that kind of freedom. We got buck wild, man.
That's awesome, man. That's so awesome. So then you moved back here. And when did you start training and doing Muay Thai?
2005 is when I first started training Muay Thai. 2006 is actually no, same year. 2005 was when I had my first fight.
Wow.
Yeah.
I met you 2008. That's crazy. See, I didn't realize you'd only been fighting for 3-4 years at that point.
I thought I met you a little bit later than that, but it could be. It's been that long. I don't know.
That's when I got my ass beat at hybrid. Yeah, no, maybe. Yeah, that I did. 2008, 2009. Yeah, 2008, 2009. Yeah. And then, so you started training. When you first started doing it, did you realize that? I mean, it's kind of consumes your whole life now.
Martial arts had already consumed my life.
At that point, what martial art were you doing before Muay Thai?
So I started doing Taekwondo at 8 years old.
Okay, very well. That makes sense.
I went, the national competition route. I was good, state champion, yada yada yada. But there was always that constant frustration that everyone would always question me. Everyone would always test me because
I would say the Taekwondo.
Exactly.
Yeah, but listen, you get thrown by a Taekwondo, man, you realize real quick.
You get a foot upside your face real fast. Yeah. But, people questioned if I could fight. How
much did that help your Muay Thai?
It gave me a significant edge.
Yeah, just thinking about the clinch and then understanding how to utilize someone's body weight. I mean, you probably had a significant advantage having that background and experience.
I think you're confusing judo and Taekwondo with each other.
Probably. Yeah. I smoke a lot of medication.
For sure.
Okay, Taekwondo is the point fighting, no?
So that right there is the key word. There's Olympic style and point style. Okay. Point style is where you hit them, they stop, they award you a point, and then you win off of hitting somebody, but it's a lot of tactics.
And what's Olympic style? Knock you out?
That's all just kicks, nothing else.
Okay.
So you had point style where you're allowed to punch, but it wasn't only seldomly could you find a continuous style point fight, right? Okay. They would stop and they award points. So you could get a good hit off, you can knock a dude out, but you're only
getting and break.
Yeah, exactly, right? But then Olympic style is just kicks, no punches at all.
Okay.
So there's this dichotomy of both of them are intense, both of them have fighting aspects, but neither one of them is really a fight.
So and you wanted to fight?
Exactly.
I just know your spirit. So I'm I don't even got to ask that question.
So that's really what it was, is that a lot of people would push me and test me and didn't think I could fight, but I was tough. I always knew that. And I wasn't a physical specimen either. I was, I graduated high school at 6'3", 155 pounds, but I was a scrappy motherfucker. I was tough enough. Even if I couldn't beat you, I'll take your fucking beating.
I'm coming back for another one too.
Yeah.
I got to get that back.
So I was kind of at this point where I was yo, this has been fun, but this isn't a real test.
You couldn't see a future.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was searching for something, and I got tickets to a local King of the Ring event just by chance. I think my coach at the time had a something with a car went wrong in the deal that he bought a new car, and like they admitted fault. They're like, hey, we're sponsoring this event. Here's some free tickets to it. And oddly enough, if you're familiar with Brandon Vera,
of course, the truth.
Yeah, one world champion, Hall of Famer, I believe. He was actually a Brazilian jiu-jitsu coach at the Taekwondo school that I was at, and I knew that he had.
This is before he went to the show.
This was before he was even even close to the UFC. This is when he was still doing like pro-am low-level shit. Now I knew he did Muay Thai, but I didn't really know what it was. But I was like, yo, if B's doing it, like that's got to be tough. I'll go check that out. And then I saw my first fight, and that was that. As soon as the first Muay Thai fight happened, it was love at first sight. I was like, that's the answer. That's literally the mix of everything that I've been trying to do. I mean, they're hitting everywhere, doing everything. This is what I want. Mm-hmm. That's a real fight. No one's going to question you if you can do that.
So you go sign up at a gym, start training.
Yep. I mean, literally Monday morning, afternoon, after school.
And then how long was it till your first fight?
6 months.
Wow.
I had to wait because my parents wouldn't sign off on the waiver. So I had to wait till I turned 18 to sign my own shit. Yeah.
They let you do Taekwondo, but wouldn't let you do that. That's funny. Hey, don't mess with Mama Walden.
Yeah. But I think that in itself was kind of the sign. Like, that's what I was looking for. Like you said, they signed up on Taekwondo and shit. But like they saw that and they were like, what?
And then you're now I know this is what I'm about to do. So, all right, cool. Then we go from 18. When was it so after your first fight, how long was it till you actually went to Thailand? And what was that like?
2011 is when I made my first voyage, if you will.
Oh, that's really quick. So 4 or 5 years in.
Yeah, I never really did the math, thought about it like that. But yeah, I went out there and then just as much as I was hooked on the first fight that I saw, I was like, oh, okay.
Because over there, they fight in like stadiums. It's totally different level.
They fight everywhere, man.
Right, but I'm just saying they'll pack a stadium to watch Muay Thai fights. Like,
for sure.
Here, it gets kind of mixed. I don't think it would be hard to get people in Muay Thai if it got in front of more people. Because
for sure.
It's a respectable sport. You respect it real quick. You see somebody get cracked with some elbows and
absolutely we're seeing a huge influx in interest from the regular public, American public,
and MMA's helped it significantly, I would say too, right?
I hate to say it, but yes.
And I'm just saying that because to me, from training, I started in wrestling when I was younger, and then eventually was boxing and some other things. But once I trained Muay Thai, I was literally like, oh, this definitely is the best practice of striking to know for mixed martial artists.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's the art of 8 limbs. You're utilizing everything. As a Marine, I love that.
Absolutely.
If there's a knee that you can use the knee.
But yeah, I hate to say that MMA's been a big vessel.
Why do you say that? You got a love-hate relationship with MMA?
Yeah, man. Fuck that shit.
And why is that?
I don't know. MMA's just become so mainstream, and
it's kind of like when a band sells out.
Not even. I think there's a very common misconception of the level of professional athlete that the average professional MMA fighter is.
I understand.
You see what I'm saying? Like, I came in this to be an elitist. I came in this to be elite. I came in this to be one of the toughest, baddest motherfuckers that I could be.
A master in a discipline. And mixed martial arts has gotten this.
Yeah, you can be really average at a lot of things and get pretty far in professional MMA. And then, of course, you get to the professionals.
And it's got to be kind of frustrating to watch them get paid so well when Muay Thai gets paid.
When you have no idea what it takes to be a professional Muay Thai
hell, if you take a Muay Thai professional fight, honestly, you're negative when you walk in the ring. Don't matter what that check is. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen you do it, though, and you've fought for a few $1,000s here and there, but you got to travel. You got all these probably 500 travel expenses. If you have your coach with you, you're taking care of things, and it's like you have a training camp and the food that you have to eat for that. I mean, that stuff's not cheap.
If I wanted to make money, I would have been a boxer, dude.
Yeah, right?
That's the way it is.
Yeah, we had talked about that a few times about you potentially boxing, because you definitely have some.
Well, technically, I'm a 4-sport professional combat athlete. I've signed contracts.
Damn right.
In MMA,
sound like a
boxing,
Navy SEAL of
kickboxing, and Muay Thai.
Combat sports. That's dope.
Yeah, but I mean, unfortunately, those fights didn't happen because those guys pulled out, which is whatever the story of my life. But
I was about to say, man, you've definitely, for a guy who is, as you say, like wiry when he started and not the biggest like physique stature wise. A lot of guys, I'll say it, it seems that they duck you, or people definitely don't want to take the fight with you. I feel like you get stuck in where I see some of these MMA guys, not to bring them up, but you see some of the guys that you're like, yo, he's slinging and banging, knocking people out, and then they'll get stuck in that. No one wants to give them that fight like in the top 5 because they know that they're going to shake some stuff up type.
So 15 is my number.
Yeah.
15 times I said yes to a fight from an organization from the time that I was scouting me as an amateur all the way to the time that I was an active pro.
Have you ever said no?
Yes, I have, because I'm not going to get set up.
Okay. Fair enough.
And I had a couple setup fights that most people would jump on, but I was like, no, I'm not going to do that because that guy's the current champion and this is my second fight.
Well, it's called smart. It's the same reason that Floyd didn't fight certain people till certain points in their career.
I got offered Reagan Urusol. Yeah. And then I got
early on.
For my second or third professional fight. And then you wouldn't believe, I got offered Cosmo Alexander.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and he's a 185er, man,
savage.
Yeah, and I was like very politely,
no thanks.
No,
no thanks.
If that's who you have, I don't know if you know this about me, but I fight 30 pounds lighter than he does.
Yeah. I'll pass, smooth pass.
Yeah, but it got to be like a running joke that the organization would contact me, and I was like, "Oh, you got a name? Yes, sure, okay. Did he sign it? No. Okay.
So they would always have a name. So 15 different times they had a name. You signed. The other side didn't.
That, or they did sign and then pulled out, whatever it was. But it was like a running joke.
Yeah.
That so they were like, all right.
I know. Definitely. Because I was going to your fights, and I remember there was like 2 or 3 times that we were definitely on our way, gonna get tickets, and then it was like, that's not happening.
Yeah, that's the name of the game, man. You'd be amazed at how often it happens. As the amateur ranks, it's even worse.
Yeah, well, that's because it's probably expensive, maybe injury, but then also, like you said, some guys they probably watched some, tape and said, I don't want to fight.
I'm not saying 15 guys ducked me. What I'm saying is,
a few did though. I'll say it. I mean, that's a lot of math.
Yeah, for
it not to be some guys ducking. Some guys probably got hurt. Some guys probably just didn't math on the business side with them and the organization potentially. Because there's a lot of being a fighter is tough because there's a lot of poorly ran events that these organizations put on, and it affects a lot of fighters too. And I definitely have seen that before because when you guys get ready or things drag out or weigh-ins on at certain times, like. It can be almost dangerous. You know what I mean? Like if people don't get time to rehydrate and all that stuff, like what are your thoughts on stuff like that?
That's just unfortunately just part of the game. We're paid to do a job, and whether,
so the conditions, territory type thing.
Yeah, whether the conditions for that job are, advantageous or not, it's what you're there to do. That's why like a lot of my guys fight tournaments as amateurs before they do anything. You know what I mean? Because when you fight a solo fight on a regular fight card, it's pretty easy to adjust to whatever's going to happen because only so many things are going to even be able to happen within those parameters. But you got a tournament going on.
Fighting multiple times,
multiple rule sets, 4 different rings running the whole day. Absolute chaos. And anything and everything that can happen to you will, especially on like the world level, international shit. It's an absolute shit show out there.
And speaking of, you are the head coach?
Yes, I am the head Muay Thai coach of Team USA for ISKA.
And was a world champion for ISKA Team USA, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
That was for the WKA.
Okay.
Yes.
I get the
LGBT. There's a lot of letters going around right there.
Yeah. I was like, that's the farthest thing from the LMNOP QRS. Yeah. That's so okay. So world champion that, but you got to coach, and you were a coach for the past 2 years?
I've been coaching on the national level with the U.S. team and the Thailand competition team for the past 2 years with the Thailand team, and then for the past 3 years with the ISKA, and the past 6 years with other organizations as well before I started working solely for these guys. So I've been coaching on the international like the national team level since 2018.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, it's been cool to watch your journey, like as your buddy, like watch you develop the Grindstone system, which is something I'd definitely like to get into. Because so after you go to Thailand, when did you start to come up with this Grindstone Muay Thai system that you have? Is it a system? Is it a practice?
It's just an approach. That's all it is, man. You can call it a system. You can call it whatever you want. Grindstone has become a brand more than anything. It's in my gym. It's synonymous with who I am as a fighter. But it all started based off of the style of holding pads, right? Mm-hmm. I had noticed when I was in Thailand, and I've been there 8-9 times now. I don't know.
He's basically second resident, something like that. I mean, you go yearly for sure.
At this point, yeah. But I noticed when I was over there, like none of these guys spoke English.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah,
I've trained with you, so I know what your system. So they don't speak English, so that's weird.
Yeah, there's good, bad, yes, no, very few words, but we're still training for hours a day. Hitting, how many rounds on the mitts throughout all the training sessions. And, at some point in time when I get back stateside, I'm holding mitts. And I'm like, why the fuck am I saying jab, cross, hook, rear kick, hook, cross, lead kick, yada, 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 yada. Why am I wasting all this breath? This is exhausting, right? This is fucking annoying is what it is. And then, through training with other guys that had been out there and experienced the same kind of thing, and really just pulling pieces of experience from.
And you've worked with a lot of like military folks, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm just thinking, like, I know how because everything becomes visual, right? There's really no auditory.
Yeah. So that it all got started with one of my buddies went over there and fought, and I helped him prepare for that trip, and then he came back and we started training again and hitting mitts, and it was funny because it really comes down to, he goes, oh yeah, this is something that one of my trainers did in Thailand. And he just threw his mitt out there. And then when he threw his mitt, that meant he wanted this one combination, like a 3-punch hit or whatever. And I was like, dope. And then we put it the other side. And then as we're switching over mitts, I was like, well, hey, check this out. But if I put it here, let's do that. Right?
Let's do a 3, yeah.
So then just
cross, hook, cross. And then
the ball gets rolling. So me and my homie were training consistently and doing more shit together. And this became like a regular thing.
So then you prove concept with that person and develop it. And then what year was that?
So probably 2011. Nah, man. No. So it was again post my first fight, so probably the 2012, 2013 era. Yeah.
So then,
because that I went to Worlds in 2013.
That's
and
right.
We had done it all before that. So you're talking about late 2011, early 2012. So when was
the next time you went to Thailand?
So yeah, we can circle back to that. Like I said earlier, I went on my first trip over there, and it was just as much love at first sight, like my first fight. And I was like, all right, cool, I'm coming back immediately. Like I was there for 2 weeks, just first dipped my toes in the water, and I was like, fuck that, I'm getting back here as soon as possible, And I remember when I left, I told all my trainers, I'll see you soon, I'll be back real soon. And fucking, I've been there so many times now that like I hear that from every motherfucker who it's their first time, But then I showed up at the camp doors, I think like 7 months later, if that.
And they're probably like, oh, this guy's
straight up. Straight up. I walked in, I saw Sameng, one of my trainers, and he goes, and I went, I told you.
Yeah. That's been your whole life. I told you.
Right? That'd be a good name for the book.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah, there it is. So then I was there for 6 weeks, and had my first fight, which was a successful fight.
When you say successful, how successful, Mr. Walden?
So I ended up winning my first fight in Thailand via knockout by breaking the guy's left arm.
And it was a Thai?
Wasn't. He was Lebanese, okay. I believe.
Oh, they're tough SOBs too.
Yeah, I mean, there's some war-torn countries and shit, man. Or area, if you will. But that was another big staple of like, all right, I'm in this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I belong here.
Yeah.
I told you.
That's what it was, man. Same thing, you know.
So when you went over there, though, and you were holding pads for people and showing them your grindstone approach, what was the response to the ties?
So that's no one's ever asked me that question before. Good job. So that didn't happen again until 2016.
Okay.
All right. So I got back over there, you know, going to fight, and shit fell through, and they weren't going to. It got to the point where they knew they weren't going to find me a fight. So I was like, fuck. You know, I was kind of angry, pissed, and I had enough experience at that camp that one day I was like, I'm not training today. And I looked at the trainer. I was like, I'm going to hold mitts. And he was like, okay.
Sure. It's a workout to hold mitts, dude.
Right? Well, I mean, like, you know,
excuse me.
White American guy telling the coach he's not training, he's going to hold mitts.
Yeah.
It kind of caught him off guard, but he was like,
but they always need help, right? They always
well, yeah, but he was like, also, I know you. Like, I know you know your shit. Sure, pick up a set.
Okay.
And then I held mitts for a Portuguese guy. Oh, man. Brazilian guy. And I can't remember where the Asian cat was from, but it was a very small country that you barely hear of, right? Somewhere close to Taiwan. I really can't remember.
Like Guam? Or?
No, definitely not Guam. But either way, you know, those guys don't speak English.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, cool, I don't need that. And then, you know, I was able to break down, you know, what this meant, what that meant. And then we started moving. And like, once they got what I was saying, and once we caught that flow together, you just see their eyes
yes.
Oh,
yeah.
You know, and then
it's rhythmic, dude.
Yeah, and then you're speaking the same language with a person who you don't speak the same language with. Yeah, it was pretty fucking cool. And then even the trainers were like,
so did they adopt some of those things?
I don't know. I ain't seen them since 2016.
Really?
Couldn't tell you. At least not those guys. Yeah.
Wow, there's so many gems out there, huh?
Yeah, and then, you know, I'm not quote unquote a gym hopper, but the last time that I trained to fight out there was 2016. And then every time I've been since has been out there as a coach. Yeah. And I've been in different areas and shit. So I haven't
a lot more holding the mitts.
What's that?
A lot more holding the mitts than anything else.
Yeah.
It's funny though, I'll share my experience. Like I've, you know, worked with you even before you had the system, and the grindstone approach definitely makes hitting mitts like way more meditative and way more like you zone in, because you're almost shutting off a sense. So you're hyper focused on the visual, and then you know what to do. But you hear when you mess up though.
Well, there's a big difference between taking commands and finding a flow.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? If I tell you jab, cross, hook, kick, you're just taking a command. But if I am signaling, now you have to go through another step of figuring it out and making that decision and making it the right decision. You know what I mean? There's a lot more responsibility on the person that you're training for them. Nobody's training to be worse. Everyone wants to do it as best as possible. So it locks them into kind of a new zone that you won't really get if you're just taking commands.
So here's another possible good question. Have you seen people hit mitts better when they do your system rather than somebody barking the jab, cross, hook, this, that, that? Have you seen like incremental improvements in people's hitting like of mitts? Or I don't know if I'm framing that question right, but
definitely an increase in their flow. Yeah. Right now, I think the cool part about it, and I understand what you're trying to say here. If you are a certain type of mitt holder or coach or whatever, I'm not going to down that on anybody. And if you as a fighter have a connection with that coach, then you can definitely establish a flow with them immediately because y'all have that experience together, right? Mm-hmm. In my experience and with athletes, and maybe even working with one of those athletes that has a coach that they're really, really good with, I have found that it is easier to get the average person into a flow faster on a wider scale.
Yes,
right.
that's what I meant.
So if you give me 1, 2, 3, 4
yes.
athletes, I can get them in a steady state of flow with me faster than most people could through this approach.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying, because I do feel like, this might sound weird, but I think it's the reason that you stay in flow more is we don't have the wasted space of the breath, because you have to give the command. That's time. That's why the military uses so many hand signals. That's why I was curious if you got some of that from that too. Just being around the military so much, because you know, stop is way easier than being like, yo, stop.
Yeah,
you got to hope everybody hears it, but everybody will see this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And everybody will see this. You know what I mean? As opposed to, all right, let's go. Because then you got to wait, and then the guy in the back does hear
100%.
it later than the guy in the front. So that's definitely interesting. And it's been cool to watch that system. I mean, increase. I mean, it was an idea. I watched you grindstone it out, if you will, and then sign on the gym and all kinds of cool stuff. So what's next, man? Like, we're so accomplished this. I mean, you're like a sanctioning authority, if I'm not mistaken. Like, you can pretty much, like, you ref fights, you host. I mean, you're like, you can cover a whole event, right? Like, you can.
If there is,
you're kind of the man when it comes to that kicky punchy officiating stuff, aren't you?
If there's anything that you have to do with a combat sports event, I have the ability to perform that task.
Awesome.
Whether it be reffing, judging, officiating, sanctioning, owning, fighting, whatever. And I've done every single bit of combat sports professionalism as far as hosting an event goes.
And how does the mindset of Grindstone, do you apply that to working in the refereeing? Whether I know you've tried to improve some things for the fighters and for probably even the referees as well, with some rules and different things.
So it's an ever evolving sport, man. And as we talked about it earlier, you know, organizations like One Championship, very famous for MMA, are now putting Muay Thai on the front lines of things, and it's becoming extremely popular.
So now MMA might become your friend, huh?
It might be if it has to. But because the sport is growing in popularity, and just like any natural evolution of anything, people are going to get more serious with it. So one of the big increases of interest you've seen is people getting very involved in the rule sets and the judging and the refereeing and educating themselves with further education through all organizations. It's become a very, very common thing because people were getting fed up with the bullshit, right? So with the organization that I'm with, I have helped a little bit advise on some of the established rules that are now put in place internationally, which is pretty cool to say that you had I'm not saying I had a big part to do with it, but
but you had an influence, and to me, you would have a command authority, because just like I trusted officers who were enlisted before they became officers because they had an enlisted experience, you have experience as a fighter, as a coach. I mean, you kind of see the game in 5D.
But it's super cool, you know, the day your phone rings and it's the guy in charge saying, "Hey man, does this sound right?" And
I told you. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, it's really cool to see it, because I've seen you put the work in. Like, when you said earlier, like, mixed martial arts, you got into the game to be a master of one thing. You know what I mean? One skill set, one art form, and I've seen you do that, and it's pretty awesome. And it's really cool to see you get I just call that like validation from the community that you care so much about, because I know I mean this, it's not only tattooed all over you, I mean it's ingrained in your soul. I know that for sure. And I know you love the Thai people, the Muay Thai, everything. So it's cool to see that happen, and I'm super proud of you, and keep going on that. And with all that said, what is next? Because I know you have, maybe call it a swan song? Like, was it the Twilight era? What are we doing, man? I know you're doing something just kind of to make sure, I would think, that you leave it all on the table, per se.
That is the goal. So very recently, we have discovered a long list of injuries, almost all of them permanent, in my right arm and elbow.
Well, you kind of knew that was going to be the case.
20 years of combat sports, right?
Yeah.
I was having pain, yada, yada, yada. End up having to go see a specialist, and sits me down, puts an X-ray up, and then sits this close from me, and I was like, "Oh no, this ain't good." So lacerated UCL, torn, I think ICL something, torn major tendon on the inside, which is the only permanent that is not, or injury that is not permanent. Post-traumatic arthritis of the elbow, post-traumatic arthritis of whatever the other joint is in there, one bone spur on the upper forearm, one bone spur on the lower bicep where they both fold in. And there's about 3 or 4 pieces of bone just floating around in there right now that are broken off. They say there is a very solid chance that I broke my elbow at some point in time, but they can't quite tell. And they said in time I will need a complete elbow replacement.
Is that it?
Right.
So you're gonna be the bionic man one day.
I'm hoping to get adamantium in there so I can kind of get my superhero era going on.
But you can definitely, but you can fight.
We are
not that you should per se, but you know.
So that's where we're at now, is that we are officially in the rehabilitation phase.
Okay.
So in light of all of this, you know, despite my very handsome, young-looking exterior,
that's right,
I'm a 38-year-old professional combat athlete.
All right.
The window was already closing pretty fucking quickly, and we knew that. It's you're 38 years old, you're pushing 40.
Well, you're just a realist, man.
Right?
You're a realist.
But you know, again, at this point in time, the only injury we can treat is the major tendon on the inside right here. Okay. Everything else is just treating pain. So when I talked to my doctor, he said, you know, we're going to do PRP treatment on the tendon. We'll put some PRP treatment in the joint of the elbow to help a little bit.
It'll feel good. Yeah, feel better.
And then we'll
that'll move a lot of the inflammation.
Mm-hmm. And then we'll put steroid injections into the elbow as well.
Hey,
but that is going to
you're going to have a swollen right arm.
It's already a little bigger than the other one.
That's right. Switch head every once in a while, buddy.
Right. But then he said the steroid injections will make the arthritis worse in time.
Of course.
But
can you run peptides at the same time, so that would kind of help with that?
That, you know, a little above my pay grade, but we did mention a little bit about that, but I had to kind of go back and talk to him.
Yeah, definitely. If they're already playing with steroids,
right? So, you know, he feels confident that we can get back to fighting to finish what little career that we had left. But
aren't you going to sandwich that into a short period of time?
Yeah, well, that's the next point. I've decided that I'm selling both of my businesses and moving to Thailand for a minimum of 90 days, maximum of 6 months. And then when I get home, so long as everything holds up through the arm, I'm going to come back and have one last fight in front of my friends and fans, and then retire.
No. Stopping fighting.
Yeah, no, yeah, retire from the ring.
There you go.
But, you know,
I know it's hard to say that out loud.
I'm not going to lie. I cracked a little bit there. It's not
is that the first time you said that out loud?
On camera, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, so I guess you got to stick to it now, too. You can't be that
right.
Fighting,
said this shit out loud, right?
Speaking of which, man, how was it? Like, how did having a military father affect your approach and discipline in martial arts?
So my old man was what you call a Mustang. I'm sure you're familiar. For those who don't, that means
the ones that I just trust, the ones I said I trust the most. And was enlisted and then became an officer.
Yeah, so he went in the old school way.
So then he finally got paid some money.
Yeah, I know exactly.
Y'all ain't going no
more. But he went from E1 to 06 before he got out. Wow. By the time that he got out, he was the highest ranking military musician in the history of the United States Navy.
So your dad's a musician. That's amazing.
Yeah. You know, to get that far,
because you're much more than a martial artist yourself. That probably comes from your father. It sounds like
a little bit.
Because
I was a bass player. You know, I played a little bit of heavy metal. But being in front of that tenacity,
you got to act a certain type of way when you're an officer's child.
You're a subordinate, not a son. It's
Well, all right. You know, peel it off. I mean, I get it.
For sure. It's just what it was.
Yeah.
But you know, growing up, you know, with a musician as a father, you know, there's those full circle moments that come around where, you know, I know every major and minor chromatic scale by heart, and you know, from quarter notes to fucking 84th notes just because I heard them every single day of my life on a trumpet or whatever consistently. And I remember.
You think that affected your rhythm, like fighting per se?
Maybe having a distinct understanding of music and how that works probably gave me a little bit of advantage in it. Just having an understanding of how to like make and break rhythms, But I remember as a kid like hearing them from outside, and I was like, nobody wants to fucking hear that shit, man. What the hell? Like, what are you doing? And, fast forward to, 2012, 2013, I'm in a bag room ripping kicks, literally like 1,000 kicks each leg of just one kind.
Hear that.
Somebody came in, the person I was working for at the time, and I'm in there, loud, getting it. And I remember the person coming in, looking at me with like a shit look, and then like closing the door to that room, like nobody wants to fucking hear that shit, and closed it. And I just was drawn back to that moment in Chicago, Illinois, right outside my fucking house, hearing that and being like, is that where I got that from? Is that where this comes from?
Quite possibly, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, he probably didn't want to play those notes 1,000 fucking times.
No, not that's how
you become the best.
Yeah.
It's awesome. We won't get into the subordinate thing. So we got the Twilight song. We got the setup for that. And then what's after that? Are you just going to sail off in the wind? Are you going to focus more, maybe throwing your own events? What are you going to do? Like, what's the next after that? Or are you just zoned into this?
So, obviously I need to make money. A very good friend of mine, another really cool full circle moment, is really giving me a shot to be able to make a living. My buddy Andy runs the most successful barbershop in Virginia Beach called Dapper Street Barbershop. Please go check him out.
Shout out Andy.
Yeah, no, and Andy's a dear.
I'll be going there if I think what you're about to say is you're going to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So after the sale of the business is complete, I will start my apprenticeship as a barber.
Hey.
And I will be able to, with that job, make a little more money than I was expecting, which is pretty nice. Yeah. But
you'll be able to travel.
I'll be able to travel and still have the freedom to work with my U.S. national teams and go referee and go do the certifications and all that stuff. And, if, God willing, that I get back from this trip and my arm is still good to go, I can make a bunch of money, leave for another month or 2, 3 months, come back because I have that freedom with this style of job.
Love that.
But a very, very, very cool, full circle moment for me is because Andy and I met through bartending down on the block. And if you've ever been down the block, you know what kind of environment that is. And
we all were bartending.
Yeah. But when I made the decision to move to Northern Virginia to pursue my professional fighting career,
yes, sir.
Me and Andy were behind the bar together when he pulled me aside. He was like, yo, I think I'm going to start my apprenticeship as a barber. I think
that's so wild, man.
Yeah. And I was like, dude, do it. I'm getting out from behind this fucking bar. I'm done with this life, man. Fucking do it.
Yeah, it's an illusion.
Yeah,
money doesn't exist. You got to go out and spend it on the same people that come out to see you.
Yeah, man.
At least it was at the block.
Yeah,
I think it's like that anywhere.
A lot of quicksand involved in that. But now, years later, I'm getting an opportunity from my friend who we had that
took it to the fullest,
and now is allowing me the ability to have this swan song and this one last rodeo, which is pretty fucking cool, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Absolutely, I think it's amazing, and he's always supported you as well. I know
he's been sponsoring me for years, man. Years. So it's
I definitely always respect him. I know we had a couple of those fundraisers, so I always pull up and support your stuff as well when I can. And I want you to go ahead. One thing you would tell your 18-year-old self or anybody else, just what's one message you want to leave everybody with, and tell them where they can find you.
You can find me all around the fucking world.
Hey,
wherever the light's shining, you can find me, homie.
There you go.
Take every opportunity that you get. Every fucking single one.
But Chase, what if I have to live out of my car? What if I can't afford my rent? What if I take? You're saying just take it.
You have to, because regardless of how many of them come or go, this is 100% proof. You don't know when they're going to be taken from you.
Yeah. You know, and what's funny is I said, what if I had to live out of my car? Because I watched you live out of your car to chase, no pun intended.
Right.
The I told you in this game, dude. And I'm so proud of you. You're definitely like a real life ninja in my eyes. And you've helped my mental health a bunch of different times. You know, we've always had private lessons, had a bunch of conversations together. And I would encourage anybody put their kids in martial arts, to practice martial arts yourself, because when you get out some of that kinetic energy in a healthy manner, it can do a lot for your mental health. And it's also very meditative. Thank you for the impact you have on young men, and keep pushing, brother.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Let's hug it out. My boy.